systems ninja, right? Who learned something right there about how you can make your business more effective and save more time? Raise your hand. If you learned something from Amy right now, can I hear you go, oh yeah? Yeah, exactly, right? Like, I just learned 5 new things I can do with my system that I didn't know how to do. I'm like, what? I can do that? I didn't know I knew I had wish lists. I didn't know I had 7,700 wish lists, right? I'm like, dang, I could just, take the year off. Call my wish lists. That's it, right? Just call my wish lists. What the heck am I doing, right? So, all right, awesome. Here we go. This is the 3 in the 1, 2, 3 punch, right? 1, 2, 3. So you heard about marketing strategy. We talked about that. We talked about building your brand. You just heard from Amy about systems. How do you make your system more efficient? How many of you feel like I've got a crap load of stuff I have to do now? Raise your hand. Okay. So, like Deanna said yesterday, I just want to give you a tip that's always helped me at events like this before I go into my next message here. This has always helped me in my events. This has always helped me in my business. Whenever I come to training events like this, anytime I go to seminars outside of Cutco, you should have an actions list, right? So star, highlight, circle the things in your notes that you're like, okay, that's a nugget. That's the thing I got to focus on. That's something that needs more time. That's something that needs more attention. Okay, and it's okay if that list gets really big and really long. At an event like this, where all we're doing is teaching you hey, you could do this to increase your sales. You could do this to increase your sales. You could do this to get better. You can improve here. You could do this. You could do this. Speaker after speaker after speaker after speaker after speaker. Why do we do that? We do that because we know every single one of you needs something different. Every one of you, you're in a completely different place. Your business is completely unique. We're trying to give you everything you could possibly do to take your business to the highest level, all in 2.5 days. How many of you feel that right now? If you feel that, can I hear you go, oh, I feel it, Josh? Right, exactly. So the reality is all of you are going to have a list of 100 things you could do. So star, circle, highlight those things. And then at some point during or after this event, organize that list. Ask yourself, what moves the needle the most? What are the 5 biggest things I need to get to work on right away? Because those are the things that are going to make the biggest difference for me in my business right now. And then turn that into an actions list. And make that the thing that you start working on after this event. And you just start clipping those things off one at a time. Try to get 2 or 3 things implemented into your business in the next 30 days after this event. You do that, then you go back to that list, and you take the next 3 things, and you take the next 3 things. By the time you get here next year, your business will be here, and you'll be super stoked. You'll be like, hell yeah, I did it. Maybe you had 100 things on that list. Maybe you only got 12 things implemented. Maybe you only got 5 things implemented, but those were the 5 things that move the needle the most. Aren't those the 5 things you want to work on right away? Yes or yes? Absolutely, right? So now let's talk about driving traffic to your events. Driving traffic to your events. Here's the idea, right? We're going to get specific about events. As soon as my clicker starts working. Oh, it's off. How about that? Cool. Oh, you know what? Amy, is this your clicker? This is Amy's clicker. Where's the other one? There it is. All right, cool. I'm like, why is my clicker not working? Because it's my clicker, not the one that's supposed to be up here. All right, cool. So let's talk about driving traffic to your events. Here's the goal, right? The goal is to get people to attend events and increase sales where you're already working. Where you're already working. Okay, I'll tell you a quick story about one of my best home and garden shows I do every year. I'm doing it for years, right? And I've never marketed this event. I'm consistently selling, $2-3 grand a day. It's a 4-day event. I'm like, yeah, this is cool. I'm selling like 10 to 12 grand a year at this event. This is awesome. I only spend like $500-600 to be there once we split up the costs and all that. This is a great event for me, right? How many of you guys have a 10 or 12K event that you work every year that you're like, yeah, this is badass. I'm rocking it at this. Raise your hand if you have like a 10 or 12K event, right? How many of you have like a 30K event you work every year where you're like, yeah, I'm rocking this 30K event. Maybe it's a little bit longer. How many of you have the 5K event that you work every year where you show up at that event every year, you're going to sell 5 grand? Raise your hand. You guys should be proud. Do we need a stretch break? You guys need a, are you with me right now? Is everybody with me right now? All right, cool. How many of you have the event you're going to sell 2 grand at every year? How many of you have the event if you work that event, you're going to sell $100 at least? Minimum $100. Yeah? All right, cool, good. How many of you, no matter what question I ask, you're never going to raise your hand because you're like, Josh, I'm done. I've been in so many of your talks. I've worked out so much. Raise my hand, raise my hand, raise my hand. I get it. I got it. You're good, Josh. I got it. So, all right, cool. Here's the idea, right? At that home and garden show, I was just like, I wonder if I sent a letter to this event the same way I send a letter to my big state fair every year, what would happen? So I sent a letter out, marketed to my customers. All I did was send the letter. I didn't even have the CRM yet. There was no email marketing yet, right? I wasn't doing marketing follow-up calls yet. That event went from selling 12 grand the year before, worked the same event, same number of hours, same cost. I sold $19,000 past customers. I was like, hot dog! Something worked, right? And I tracked my stats, and I was like, it was the marketing. It was the past customer business. Okay, I'm going to do that again. This was the next year. This was the year I fired my mailing company because I sent the letter out, and nobody showed up. And I was like, what the heck? Nobody showed up. It worked last year. What'd I do? Did I screw up? Am I like an amateur now? Are my customers mad I sent the letter? What happened? I called my mailing company because that was the place to start. I started investigating. Oh, well, we got it out a few days later than what you told us to. Sure enough, the day after the event, I started getting calls from customers like, hey, we got your letter, but it showed up on like Tuesday after the event was over. Great job. Would have been nice to get that last week so we knew the event was going on. We would have come and seen you. And I was like, oh, so my mailing company dropped the ball, sent it out late, right? And it missed the mailboxes. You want to know how much I sold that year? 10 grand. 10 grand. I was like, holy crap, my letter didn't land on time. I lost $4,500 as a result. Not good, right? How many of you would look at that and go, oh, that's not good? Right? Yeah, exactly, it's not good. So here's the reality, right? There's a strategy, there's a system, there's a process that you've got to use to make sure that you're set up so that you have marketing success. And here's what's cool. If you consistently communicate with your customers, if you implement the strategy we talked about earlier, build your brand, communicate that brand, right? Build relationships with your clients, promote yourself, follow up with your clients, use a system to get everything working, make sure that it all happens on time and as it needs to consistently, and pay attention to your results. That strategy is going to turn into lifelong loyalty from your clients. It has to. It works. But when it comes to your events specifically, you've got to start thinking about, like, what events do I know I'll be working? What events do I want to be working? Where do I want to get with my team? And then how can I strategically drive traffic to those events? So you got to work with your coordinator, figure out your schedule. You got to work with your team to make. You got to work hard to make sure you're earning shifts, like earning the opportunity to select the shifts at the events that you want to work. And you got to think about, how am I going to, like, where are the events I'm working where I already have customers? How can I strategically drive people to those events? That's what I'm going to answer for you today, give you a process and a system and a bunch of questions that you want to answer every time you're planning your marketing so that you know that you can confidently be driving traffic, so that you know that when you do this, your customers will show up. We follow the same strategy we talked about in Clients for Life, which is serve, promote, and sell. Serve your clients first, promote what you're doing, and then when they show up, be positioned with your approaches, with your skill sets to confidently close deals with those clients. All right? Serve, promote, sell. So, number one, you got to pick a school of thought. Are the handouts out? Yeah, they are. Okay, cool. So you got to pick a school of thought. So here's the reality. There's really like 3 different ways that you can promote your events, right? One is like what Amy talked about earlier, by area, geographically. Right? Hey, they're in this area, and they're somebody that, I want to see, like, since they live in this area, if they'll come to this event. I want to let them know about the event. There's also by event. Mike Dowd, what he does is, like, every year he sits down with his, like, 5 or 10 best shows, and he looks at who are the people who bought at that specific event last year, and those are the people that he markets to, just the people who bought at that event. You can do either or, right? One or the other. You just have to pick your school of thought. Do you want to promote to people who, by the area that they live in, or do you want to promote to people because they shopped with you at that event in the past? Or do you want to do both? That's the third way. Do you want to do both? In my business, we do both. We go by area, and we go by who's shopped with us at the event, and we put those lists together. And then those are the people that we market to. Step number 2 is you got to promote the event. Oh, wait, there we go. Event by area or both. All right, step number 2 is promote the event. So how are you going to promote the event? Here's my rule. The bigger and longer the event, the more promotion we do. So the bigger and longer the event, the more promotion that we do. What does bigger mean? Well, the larger the event, the more vendors that are there, the more attendance that is there. If you've got an event where only a couple hundred people show up every year because it's a very specific industry event, well, it's not likely that you're going to be able to drive, a whole crap load of people there. So you want to do a little bit less promotion. But if you've got an event where 30 or 40,000 people are showing up every day, or if you have an event like a state fair where 1 million people show up over the course of a few weeks, or like the State Fair of Texas, we have 4.7 million people that show up over the course of 24 days. The LA County Fair, right? They do a lot of promotion for the LA County Fair because the LA County Fair has something like 2.6 million people that show up over the course of, 17 days now, 20 days, something like that? 19 days, right? That's a lot of people, right? So when you've got high traffic events like that and they're spread out over longer periods of time, it just makes sense to do more promotion. More than just a postcard and an email. It makes sense to put together marketing campaigns for those events. And I'll tell you exactly how I pick and how I design that strategy. Step 3 is pick a strategy. Pick a strategy. For every event that you're going to market, pick a strategy. Are you going to do direct mail? Are you going to do email? Are you going to do phone call? Are you going to do a text? Are you going to do a combination of all of that stuff? Right? Direct mail, email, phone call, text. And then the fourth thing is, plan and execute. Plan and execute. Like Amy just talked about, are you gonna do it all yourself? That's okay. That means you need to know how to use your system. You got to have the schedule set up to actually plan it and then execute everything. How many of you are guilty of sending out the email to promote your event the second day of the event? Raise your hand. Yeah? By the way, this was me for a very long time. It was like, I know I want to send a letter, but boy, that letter would land, I wouldn't even get it done until 2 or 3 days before the event because I was licking the envelopes, I was folding the letters, I was doing all the printing and picking them up at Office Max, I was putting the labels, I was printing. I was spending 5 hours the night that I printed labels to print 1,000 labels because for some dumb reason, my stupid printer wouldn't ever print the labels right. You know what I'm talking about? It doesn't have to be the label story. It could be any story for you where you're like, it's taking way longer than it feels like it needs to. Right? It becomes frustrating when you're doing everything yourself. So, it was when I learned hey, I just got to delegate this. Let the pros do this. Spend a little bit extra money and let the mailing company mail this stuff for me. But what that required was that I did more planning, that I was more prepared further in advance. Now, if you're small, you just have 100 or a couple hundred customers, it's okay for you to do it yourself because it doesn't take long to do that. When you get to the point where you have hundreds or then thousands of customers, you got to start thinking about what's the better system that I can use to better plan and better execute the strategy. You got to start operating like a business owner. And I'll tell you that the moment I learned to let go of a lot of things was the moment I was able to focus more time and energy into what I'm best at, which is selling. Right? Every one of you, that's what you're best at in this room is selling. And so it was when I let go of that stuff, I then didn't have to spend any brain space on it. I just had to plan it, give it to somebody else, let them execute it. It was boom, things got done. I didn't have to worry about them confidently. I just had to check in on things. So do you want to do it yourself? Do you want to leverage it and have somebody else do it for you by outsourcing it? Or do you want to do a combination of the two? There's some things where it's Amy and I are working in tandem to get something done, right? And then there's other times where, maybe I'm making the phone calls. They're doing the lists for me. I'm meeting with the marketing team. We're doing the plan, all that sort of stuff. And they're okay, we need you to do these things, and we're going to do these things. And then it's a combination. There's other things where it's fully leveraged. When I'm promoting my state fairs, I just approve the cards, I approve the emails, and then, I approve the call script, and then they get everything sent. They send all the emails, and then they make all the phone calls. But then there's other promotions that I do where I make the phone calls because it's a higher value phone call. It just makes sense for me to make those phone calls. Make sense? Right? There's sometimes where I let them write the postcard or write the email for me. There's other times where I write the postcard or the letter or the email because for that event, it just makes sense for me to be the one that's doing that. And they just execute the strategy. But you have to think those things through when you're planning your marketing strategy. And then here's the 6 questions that I always ask every single time. So the decisions and the details, right? So you've got to make decisions as a business owner leading up to your events. What events are you going to promote, and how are you going to promote them? And so there's 6 questions. Every time I sit down and plan out my marketing strategy, these are the 6 questions I'm always asking. These are the 6 questions that Amy and I and the team are always answering so that we can make sure that we execute at the highest levels. So, number 1, what is the event and when is it? So what is the event I want to promote, and when is it? Now, some of you may not know yet. That's okay. If you have a ballpark, it's still good to sit down and plan out what would be your ideal marketing strategy. Right? What's your ideal strategy? If you do get the shifts you want, if you do get the event that you want, what is the ideal strategy for you? Might as well at least start putting it out there in the world. Now, if you want a tip, like a high-level tip, if you're newer on your events team, I'll give you a tip. Buy a booth for yourself. Get yourself a booth in a box. I've watched that video so many times, right? So awesome. Get yourself a booth in a box, right? Or talk to your coordinator, get yourself a booth, and then tell your coordinator, I want to start helping us grow our events team. So I have a booth I've invested in. Can I help you find new events for our program? I'll do it the way you want me to do it. Just teach me how to do it. I'll follow all the rules. I'll make sure that I'm not doing it without you because only coordinators can book events, just so you guys know. But if I find my own events, is that a good thing? Right? And I got to imagine in your team, if you go sit down with your coordinator and say, I want to help grow the events program, and I bought my own booth, can I help find new events? I'm pretty sure they're going to be like, yeah, sure. And if they don't say that, well, then you need to understand a little bit better what's going on in your program so that you can work within the rules. But for most programs, I know that that will be a yes. It'll be an easy yes, right? And then what's cool is when you're finding your own events, you'd say, well, great. So if I find my own events and I put my own booth there, is it possible that I'll get, some dibs on working that event? Now, every events program is different, so I can't tell you exactly how it's going to work. But that's one conversation you could have to give yourself a better sense of stability and your schedule, right? But you got to work with your coordinator, with your division, with the leaders on your team, within the rules of your program to make sure that works for you. I know there's multiple people in this room right now that have a lot of sense of exactly what their schedule is going to be because they researched and found a whole bunch of events that they've helped put on the calendar, and now they get to work those events because they're also performing consistently. Part of the reason they're performing consistently is so they're at the top, so they get to pick the shifts at the shows that they helped find, that they know they want to work. And then they're sitting there going, okay, I know next month I've got these events because these are the ones I found. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be able to work those events, so I want to plan my marketing strategy around those, right? You have to start by picking what events do you want to market? When will they be? Get those things in your calendar. If you want to operate like a CEO, CEOs are not operating from week to week to week. CEOs are thinking by quarters, they're thinking by years. So if you're running week to week, paycheck to paycheck right now, you're not the CEO of your business yet. It's time to step up. It's time to perform more consistently. It's time to start thinking longer term. So that's question number 1. Question number 2, who is your market? Who's the market that you want to promote to? Who's the market you want to promote to? Right? Amy talked about that. For me, for some events, it's people within a 30-mile radius of where the event's going to be. For other events, it's people from an entire state because people come to that event from around the entire state. One of the things you can do is you can hop on the website for the event, and you can look and see who are the types of people that come. They usually promote, like we pull people from these areas. Many event promoters on their websites will actually give you like their marketing information, what their marketing budgets are, who they're advertising to, where they're advertising. And so you can look at, and you can use your CRM, and you can look at that information, then you can use your CRM, and you can decide, like, okay, based on the event and where it pulls from, these are the people I want to market to be at that event. For small, like weekend festivals, it might just be that little town. But we have like the Bluebonnet Festival where it's an hour and a half outside of Austin. But what's interesting, what's unique about that, most people would look at that and they go, well, I'm just going to advertise to my people in Burnet to try to drive traffic from people in Burnet. But if you do the research, what you'll find is that the Burnet Bluebonnet Festival, every single day of the event, there's a train that gets loaded up full in the morning at 8 a.m. and takes people all the way out to that event from Austin and drops them off. Trainfuls of people, right? All day long. They run them back and forth. So it's a busy event because it's not just the town of Burnet that shows up, it's also the town of Austin that shows up. And when you know that information, it's like, okay, well, I know at that event, I want to advertise to the Burnet people plus the Austin people, even though they're an hour and a half away, even though it's a small town weekend event, right? But who's your market? Who are the people that attend that show? And then get those people there. Like, decide who those people are. It's what's the list? What's the list I'm actually going to send marketing to? Third thing. What is the campaign that makes most sense for this event? What is the campaign that makes the most sense for this event? Here's my rule. Here's my rule. If it's a small 1 to 3 day event, I just send an email out promoting the event because the email is the cheapest thing. The most people look at it, it's the lowest cost, so it's the lowest risk, and since more people look at it in today's world, it's higher conversion, it's higher profitability. Right? So email's always where we start. Email's always where we start. Now, if it's a 1 to 3 day key event means like, this is one that I've been working for years. This is one our team has worked and developed into a top-notch event. Like, we know that this event consistently performs year after year after year. Now, for some divisions, that might be a monthly event. Like in Texoma, they have the Canton Trade Days, right, where a whole bunch of people from all over the state show up every first weekend, and they go to this thing called the Canton Trade Days. There's like 18,000 vendors there. How many vendors are there, Brian? 7,500 vendors, right? I was exaggerating with 18,000. I didn't realize it's 7,500. That's ridiculous. Yes, some months they have 100,000 people. Every month for the whole year, right? That's a key event for them. They're like, that is a big event. We can consistently sell. How much is the booth? So they spend $500 a month for 2 booths, and they did $170,000 there last year. Now, here's the thing, right? It's really easy to judge events from the outside. It's just a flea market. That's just a cheap event in the middle of nowhere. But when you dive in and do the research, a lot of times you can find little golden nuggets in the haystack. You can find the diamonds in the rough. You can find the needles. And you never know what the event is going to be. Right? It's like the Buda Wiener dog races. We avoided it for years. Yes, wiener dog races. People dress up their dogs, put them in strollers, bring them to this event, and then they put them on a racetrack and race them. Wiener dogs. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen, right? I know there was one year where the Olean team was like, it's the best, we love booking that event every year just because it's the name of it is ridiculous. And we're like, yeah, we know. It's like $300 a year, and we sell $5, $6, $7,000 at it. Now, I don't think it's on our key event schedule, right? But you never know what your key events will be until you actually work them enough to see, can you turn them into a key event? Are you thinking about your events calendar in terms of key events? I know Brian's going to talk a lot more about that. We've got a panel on that specific topic for the coordinators tomorrow. But if it's a 1 to 3 day key event, I do email plus direct mail. So I'll do like a letter or a postcard plus an email to go with it. And then if it's like 4 to 10 days or more, right? If it's a key event that's like 4 or more days, and actually I've done this on some of our 1 to 3 day key events as well, but 4 to 10 days plus, depending on how much business I get, how much traffic I see, we'll do direct mail plus email plus a marketing follow-up call. And that's like that's the best events every year. We've been working them every year. Like some of you in this room are veterans. You know you're 2 or 3 or 4. Some of you probably have 10. Those are your events. Those are like your cornerstone events. You depend on them. The best strategy you can use, we've gotten 30 to 40% conversions on these events. I send out 1,000 letters, 300 people show up. Because what I do is I send out 1,000 letters, plus I send out an email, then I send out a couple reminder emails, and I send out a last chance email. And in addition to that, while that 10-day event is going on, we're also calling all of those 1,000 people, leaving hundreds of voicemails. right? Talking to hundreds of people, letting them know, hey, we're at the event. Make sure if you come by, you stop by and say hi, put your name in the drawing, or whatever we're promoting for that event. And as a result, more people show up. I would find that if I just send a letter, right, it's the highest cost in the industry, it's the lowest return. You can count on about 2% response rate. So you send out 1,000 letters, that means about 20 people are going to show up or respond or do something with it. But then when you combine it with the email and multiple reminders on a key event, suddenly that 2% goes to like 10%. And then when you combine the email and the direct mail with the call, we've seen that number go from 10 to 15, 20, 30, sometimes 40%. Depending on the event, depending on the relationships you have with your customers, depending on how well you're following through on your brand, depending on all the other stuff in the marketing strategy we talked about earlier, right? That stuff all influences how good of a conversion you get. But think about that. People are like, but you spend so much time and money, Josh. I say, yes, because I can see that when I spend every one of those dollars, each one of those dollars is turning into more dollars than what I spent. That's a profitable decision. If I can make $1 on an investment, that's profit. I'm going to make that decision over and over again. I'm going to tweak that decision until we get the best results from it. Because that's business, right? Now, here's the great thing. We come from a place of pure service for our customers. It's all about serving the customer. I know that if you respond to my marketing, show up at my event, when you show up, I'm either going to get you scheduled for a service call or I'm going to get you some new stuff in your home, and both of those things are of service to you. How many of you believe the more Cutco you sell, the better off your customers are? If you believe that, say, I believe. I believe. You do, right? If that was not like, Curtis, was that level 10 conviction? Curtis, will you give us level 10 conviction? If you believe, Curtis, stand up, buddy. If you believe that every time you sell Cutco to any one of your customers, you are doing them a great service for the rest of your life, can I hear you say level 10? I believe. Yeah. Stephen Decker, can I hear you say, I believe every time? Yeah. People, I don't go to church, but let's have a church moment here. Can we have a level 10? I believe moment. If you believe that every single time your customers buy something from you, you are doing them a lifelong service that they will benefit from long after you're done. Can I hear you say, I believe? I believe. Hell yeah, you do. Then you might as well spend the money and make the investment to make this stuff happen, drive traffic at the highest levels. So let's talk about the other thing you got to answer is question number 4. When does the email launch? When do reminders happen? When does my email launch? When do reminders happen? On the handout, I gave you, this is my map. This is my roadmap, my massive action plan. We just pull this puppy out, and this is what we do. So launch 2 to 3 days prior to the start of the event. That's the goal. It ends up in their inbox 2 to 3 days before the event. Reminders every 3 to 4 days. Okay, if it's just a 3-day show and it's a 3-day event and it's a key event, I might send it on day 2. Right? So these rules can be broken. They're not hard, set, fast rules. You can break them. You can adjust them. This is just a template by which we go by. If I'm like, okay, this is a 4-day event, I don't have like a reminder to send out on day 3 or 4. I want to send it out on day 2. Maybe I even want to send it out on day 4, right? But I'm asking that question. When do we want to send our reminders out? And then last chance. Last chance is always 24 to 48 hours before the end of the event. If it's a longer key event, 24 to 48 hours. Last chance. This is your last weekend. Get out and let's do this, right? Come and see us. By the way, Thursday, Friday, I'm working 2 days at the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo. Tomorrow, my clients are getting a reminder email that says, hey, it's the last chance for the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo. They've already gotten like 3 emails. I've already gotten like 5 orders from that event. I haven't even worked it yet. I'm making money, and I'm not even there because the team is awesome, because we're all there to serve each other, help each other, look out for each other's customers. And they're getting an email tomorrow because I show up on Thursday and Friday. And it's like, hey, it's your last chance. I'm going to be there. Come out and see me. Right? Because I want them to know that this is the last weekend. So we let them know it's your last chance. Come on out. If you've been waiting, time to stop. Question number 5. If you're doing direct mail, when does the direct mail land and when does it drop? There's two things here, right? You need to know when it drops. That's the day it goes in the mail. You also need to know when it's going to land. When do you actually want it in people's mailboxes? So my general rule is I want my direct mail, if I'm going to invest the money in direct mail, I want it to land 3 to 5 days prior to the start of the event. So if the event starts on a Friday, I want it to land either that Monday or I'll even go to the Friday or Saturday before that. Because how many of you check your mail every single day? Some of you, right? The adults in the room. No, I'm just kidding. So I get it. I'm a business owner, right? I might check my mail if I'm home and, Amy's like, hey, let's go to the mailbox. That's like our 30-minute walk in the sun every day. It's just part of our routine. Then we go to the mailbox. If I'm home by myself because she's out on the road, I don't check the mail for like a week, right? So here's the reality, right? You want your customers to get it not the day before the event because it's possible that by the time they actually check their mail, it's already past the event. You want them to get it the week before the event. So they check their mail and they go, oh yeah, and they read it and they go, oh yeah, I should put that on my calendar. And they can plan for it. That's the idea. And then that means that the drop date needs to be 4 days before your landing date if you're sending first class with first class postage, which costs more, or your drop date needs to be 10 days. 10 days before your landing date if you're doing standard postage. Prior to the land date. That means you got to be thinking ahead. You got to be designing these things. Some of you guys, how many of you use Vast Action for all your direct mail, right? And okay, multiple people in the room. So, and what's great is like we're always hounding people like a month in advance. Hey, get us your dates. Get us, like we got to get your designs done. We got to do all this stuff. And you're like, but the event's not for a month. And we're like, yeah, but to get it in the mail and guarantee that it's going to get in your customer's hands and it doesn't happen last minute and you don't miss the chance of this investment paying off at the highest level, we got to get this stuff done like 2 to 3 weeks in advance. In San Antonio Rodeo postcards, right? It starts next weekend. Those postcards, they were designed and finalized January 1st, and they were in the mail last week in order for them to land on the day that we want them to land, and in order for us to minimize the postage that we're spending so that your investment is the lowest that it possibly can be. See, these are the types of things that you got to think through. Like, do I want to do this myself or do I want to outsource this? Either way, it's okay. I don't care what you do. But just make sure that whatever you do, you're thinking far enough in advance so that you can maximize your traffic at your best events. It just makes sense to do this stuff. Because when people show up, are you guys weaponized Cutco sales machines? Yes or yes? Yes. Absolutely. So if your past customers show up at your booth, what are you going to do? Sell them more, right? Are you going to sell them more? Yes or yes? Yes. Absolutely. You're going to be there working anyways. Don't you want them around? Yes or yes? Absolutely. Even if you're so busy with new customers, there's some times where I don't even get to sell to any of my past customers because the booth is so busy with new customers, I'm just jamming out new customers. And all my past customers that are stopping by, they're helping me sell more new customers faster because I'm like, hey, how long have we been working together? 10 years. Awesome. Would you recommend that they work with me? You would? Okay, great. What do you want to buy? All right, here's an order form. By the way, you need anything? Okay, great. Let's get your name in the drawing. And I'm just like, clipboards. Clipboards all day, right? Like it's like boxing, clipboards. Right? It's very rare that I actually go a day without a past customer order. You guys know that, those of you that work with me. It's all because of this marketing approach. It's all about having this strategy, planning and executing, getting things done. And it's all about like when I got to the point where I was so busy selling that I didn't have time to do it myself and I was always behind on my deadlines, paying Amy and her team to do it for me, right? So selfish plug, I'll make it. They're amazing. I can't do what I do in my business without them. Brandon Brown said to me in the bathroom a few minutes ago, man, part of the reason I sold so much was because of you guys. And I was like, dude, will you write that down for me? He's like, yeah, man. Where's the testimonial card? So thank you, Brandon. And then the last question is, when do your designs need to be finished? So when you think about what we're doing is we're starting with the end result. We're starting with the end in mind, and then these questions are backing you out one step at a time, right? So that you can plan out into your calendar where these things need to go. And I hope you guys are realizing that the way you maximize this is not just by sending a postcard, not just by sending a letter. It's about thinking about who you're going to send it to. What events do you want to promote? How far out do you need to plan these things so that you can be fully prepared and fully confident that when you execute your strategy, everything else just falls into place, right? And I hope you're realizing, like, I got to be thinking about these things a month in advance at least, just to sit down and plan it all out. I recommend that you do it every campaign. Some of you in this room, you need to be doing it every single year. One of the most valuable things I ever did was sit down with Amy and I said, hey, I want to plan out 12 months. We did this for the first time about 4 years ago. I want to sit down, I want to just do my annual marketing plan. Let's do the whole 12 months. And it was so powerful. It took us like a half a day, Amy and I, to actually do it because our business is complicated. We got a lot to do, right? But we did that, and then it was like pressure off me. I was like, oh, my whole marketing plan is done for the whole year. I just gave it to her, and I'm like, can you do this? She's like, yep, we can do this. I was like, oh, awesome. What do I got to do? Approve your postcards quickly? Approve your emails quickly? Like, if you want to write something yourself, write it. That thing that you said you want to write the letter on, just get that to me by this date. Put it in my calendar. Boom. Okay, great. Bam, bam. What do I got to do? That was it. And then it was done. And I could just be 100% confident it was going to be executed, and I didn't have to worry about it. And then that year, sold $300,000 in repeat business. I have a big customer base, but $300,000 in repeat business. I don't have any customers complaining about sending sales. I don't have any I have customers only complimenting. Like, I've had customers come to the booth and say, you have the most intelligent marketing I've ever seen. I'm like, great, why do you say that? And they're like, well, let's see. You sent me a letter. I got it last week. You've sent me 2 emails this week, and you gave me a phone call. Now I'm here. I think it works. And I'm like, yes, that's exactly what I want to hear, right? And I'm like, cool. So can I show you the upgrade? Hey, you're qualified for our upgrade program as a Cutco owner. Can I show that to you really quick? Sure. Show me whatever you got. That's why I'm here, right? That's the way you want your customers responding to you. Yes or yes? Yes. Absolutely, right? So, 2 things. Just when do your designs need to be done? Oh, I didn't put these on there. So here, write these down, or it's on your handout. I don't need to write them down. So email, 10 days before the first send date. Whatever your first send date is for your email, a minimum 10 days, you should have it done, designed, scheduled, lists all up, ready to go. If you want to be on point, if you want to be working from the CEO mindset, this is the way you want to do it. Direct mail should be done 4 to 5 weeks before the landing date. In order to avoid rushing and in order to avoid making mistakes, both of these things. If you meet these deadlines, you won't be rushing, you won't feel the pressure, you won't be making mistakes, right? And that's the idea. The worst thing is when I am rushing to get an email done or I'm rushing to get a postcard or a letter done, and then I get it in the mail and I'm like, oh man, there's 2 other things I would have put in there. Right? 2 things I forgot. Oh, man, I said it this way, but I meant to say it this way. That was bad, right? And I go back, and I'm like, crap, that's 1,000 letters, right? It's only when I'm rushing that happens. So don't put yourself in the position to rush. There's a couple of testimonials up here just about marketing in general, but you can see, Jamie Zimbroff, the event invite. Just the event invite email has made a difference in my show's success. One customer who bought over 2,600 at the booth told me the only reason that they came was to see me. He knew I'd be there. He got my email inviting him to the event, and then he showed up. Jamie Zimbroff, been in the business for 27 years, right? Maria Stewart, where are you at, Maria? Right there. So Maria Stewart, I send out event invites to all my events, and the response is overwhelming. Many of my customers stop by and say they received my email, and some wouldn't have come to the show if it wasn't for my email. Maria Stewart, that's awesome. Thank you, Maria. We appreciate the shout out. So, and then Pat Insides, check this out. Now, these are from the first 3 days of Patton's event, but it was actually a 10-day or 11-day event, and his results were much higher than that. I think he ended up selling over $9,000 in past customer business. And the event, for some reason, probably because the oil industry has been sacked in West Texas the last couple of years. So as a result, people aren't really coming out very much. They're sitting at home a little bit depressed right now. And Patton says, hey man, if it wasn't for my marketing this year, at my event, this was so low attendance compared to in the past. It was so slow. Some of those days were painstaking. The only thing that got me through was my past customer business. More than 50% of his sales from the event were past customer sales. All because he executed this strategy, and he did the full strategy because this is one of his key events, where he did, direct mail and then email and then the marketing follow-up calls, right? I think he had his wife make the calls. So she was sitting at home. He was on the road for a couple weeks. Why not, right? It's a great connection to make. Even if your customers say, I'm not coming to the event, it's still a great connection to make because it's an extra touch. It's building a relationship. It's an opportunity for you to honor them, thank them for their business, let them know how much you appreciate them, and as a result, continue to earn their loyalty for life. You guys follow? Has this been helpful for y'all? Yes or yes? Yes. Trick question. Yeah. Okay, I'll give you yes or no. Has this been helpful for you? Yes or no? Yes. All right, awesome. Cool. I'm glad to hear the resounding yes. So